Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Enjoy the video. See you at the end.
All right. You may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Miss Lenore Aguirre.
Okay. Mr. Geary, if you'd raise your right hand, please. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Alley.
Thank you. Miss Aguirre, you are a investigator working with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
Correct.
And in that capacity, are you familiar with a child by the name of Rowan Yates?
Correct.
And did you begin an investigation on Rowan Yates and his family during the month of February?
Yes.
Tell me when that investigation started, please.
The investigation came in on the 12th. I was assigned the intake on the 13th.
And after you were assigned the intake, what steps did you take in your investigation?
I contacted the reporter.
Okay. And I don't need to know who that was, but what were the allegations set forth in that report?
The allegations were physical abuse by Jessica Yates. Rowan had sustained second-degree burns to his elbows, his left buttocks, his stomach, and those burns were in various stages of healing.
All right. After you received and talked to the report and talked to the reporter, what did you do then?
We made sure that we went out. There was a courtesy worker that went out to see the child at the hospital.
And who was
Todd,
that?
I sure do apologize for interrupting, and maybe it's just my screen. I don't see Miss Lucero on here.
I brought her back in once. She's not. No, well, she's obviously fallen off again. Let's give her a minute to come back into the waiting room.
And I apologize for interrupting.
No, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. We don't want to have to do this twice.
Yeah. I'm guessing she's came back in on a phone line. Let me get that phone line in.
She was having difficulties in our breakout rooms, Judge. So,
Miss Lucero, is that you on the phone line?
Your Honor, yes, it is. I just called in because I keep losing
Okay.
connection.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mr. Albee, go
Thank you.
ahead.
thank you, Your Honor. So, Miss Geary, after you received your report and talked to the reporter, where did you go?
The child was seen at the hospital there at UMC,
And who? Okay, UNC. That's
University Medical Center in Lubbock.
in Lubbock. And who was the courtesy worker there?
That one would have been, I think it was Mackenzie.
Do you know Mackenzie's last name?
Mackenzie's last name, I think, is Kildo.
Okay. And did she confirm that there were these burns that were reported in your report?
Yes, correct.
And at that point, did you seek out the parents to Rowan, who are Jessica Faith and Jason Yates?
Yes. She was talked to by the courtesy worker at the hospital. Jessica was.
Okay. So Jessica was at the hospital in Lubbock.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Jessica?
Not until after I provided them with the removal paperwork.
And when was that?
On the 18th, I think.
And when you talked to Jessica, what was her response to the allegations that you discussed with her?
Her response was, that I think she was playing a video game at the time, and Rowan was at the end of the couch. When he was at the end of the couch, he had fell, back and landed on the furnace. She picked him up immediately. She noticed that the burns were pretty bad. She did call 911.
Okay. So was that the first or second time that this had happened, according to Miss Yates?
That was the second time.
And it's not Miss Yates, and I apologize. It's Miss Faith, correct?
Correct.
Right. So when you talked with Miss Faith, did she tell you what happened the first time?
Yes.
And what happened the first time?
First time, her and Jason were watching Rowan. I guess he was crawling in the living room. Whenever he was crawling, he had a sock. I think he slipped on the sock. His arm went underneath him, and he fell onto the grate.
Now, when we're talking about a grate, what are we talking about?
A furnace heater on the floor.
And it's kind of the old-fashioned way that houses used to be heated. Through the heat vent was on the floor, and it would come up through the big vent in the floor, right?
Correct.
And this isn't like a small letter size or envelope size vent. This is a fairly large square vent, 2 foot by 2 foot.
Correct. It's a larger furnace.
And so what Miss Faith told you was that on a day prior to the child being sent to Lubbock, that the child was crawling on the floor, slipped, and fell onto this vent.
Yes.
And did she take the child to the doctor at that point?
No, sir.
So, but there were burns on the child at that time.
Correct.
That's what Miss Faith told you.
Yes.
And then some days later, do you know how many days later the child fell on the vent again?
It was said that it was around 3 to 5 days.
Okay. So the child was burned one day, and then several days later, Miss Faith said she was playing video games. The child fell off the couch and onto this furnace vent.
Yes.
And your office confirmed that we're talking about second degree, various stages of healing burns on a 10-month-old baby.
Correct.
Where was Mr. Yates on the second time that the child was burned?
Mr. Yates was at work.
Was, according to Miss Faith, was Mr. Yates present the first time that the child was burned?
Yes, sir.
And have you been back in the home since the child was removed?
Yes, to pick up the paperwork, the removal paperwork.
And have the parents done anything to rectify the situation when you were in that home with this furnace on the floor?
Yes, the furnace was covered up
What was it covered up with?
with a rug.
Do you know if there's any other departments that are investigating either Miss Faith or Mr. Yates for any criminal actions at this time?
Yes, law enforcement has an open criminal investigation
And law enforcement where?
in Miami.
And did you talk with the sheriff's office in Miami, Roberts County, recently to confirm that there was still an open investigation?
Yes.
And did you confirm that that investigation was still open?
Yes.
Did you talk with Mr. Yates about these incidents?
Yes.
What did he tell you took place the first time the child was burned?
He stated the same thing as mom did. He stated that the child was crawling in the living room. He had a sock in his hand and that his arm had went out from under him and that he had slipped. The burns were not as bad and did not need any medical attention, that they had just put aloe vera on it.
And then what did he say about the second event?
He stated that he was not there at the time.
And where did he say he was?
He was at work.
Do you know where he works?
He works in Pampa, Texas.
Do you know what he does?
No.
Did Mr. Yates tell you that he was coming home every night still?
Yes, he still comes home every day.
Do you, as an investigator working with the Texas Department of Family Protective Services, believe that there was, at the time that you removed Rowan from Miss Faith and Mr. Yates, that there was a danger to the safety of this 10-month-old child?
Yes.
And do you believe that that danger is continuing?
Yes.
Why?
Because she hasn't taken responsibility for what happened.
Even if it was just 2 accidents, there was still some negligence in the fact that there was this grate that hadn't been covered up, and it could have been covered up. Is that what your thoughts are?
Correct. After the first time, I would think that they would have done something.
And then she knew that there was even if they didn't cover it up, there was a hot furnace that burned this child, and she was playing video games while her child was on this couch.
Correct.
Today, are you asking that the court continue the department as temporary? Well, before I do that, let me ask you this. Do you know where this child's currently placed?
Placed with the great-grandparents.
And my understanding is that that is Miss Faith's grandparents.
Correct.
And is that in Miami?
Correct.
So we haven't placed the child in a non-familiar home in a non-familiar place.
Correct.
So now, are you asking that the court continue the department as temporary managing conservator of this child?
Yes.
And that returning the child to Miss Faith and Mr. Yates would be contrary to the child's general welfare today?
Correct.
And we would leave placement where the child is currently placed.
Correct.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gary, when the parents covered up the heater with a rug, what's the source of heat in the home now?
They have wall heaters, or like just regular heaters that are stand up.
You mean freestanding, or they're built into the walls?
They're freestanding.
Like, okay.
Not built into the wall.
Okay. All right. Ms. Lucero, questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Gary, so you've been the investigator on this case since it opened, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you've, looking at paperwork that you filed with the court, you've talked to various people, family members, the child's doctor, folks like that, correct?
Correct.
And wouldn't you agree with me that everyone said, anyone you talked to about the care of this child by the parents, and then specifically I represent Jessica, isn't it true that no one expressed any concerns regarding her care of the child?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Sustain.
Let me ask it this way. In speaking to those folks, did you have any concerns regarding the care of the child?
After talking to him?
Yes.
Ms. Gary,
Yeah.
you can say whether or not you had concerns. You just can't say what those people told you.
In my observation, I did have concerns, but after talking to him, they had no concerns.
Okay. All right then. Now when Now you talked with Jessica. She's been open with you while you've been doing this investigation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And let me ask you. You had said they could have done something else if that was the main source of heat for their home. What I don't know if you've ever dealt with this type of home with a heater on the floor. What else could they do?
Objection. Speculation.
If you have any experience with it, you can answer, Mr. Gary. If you don't, then it would be speculation.
In my opinion, I would say that yes, I would have got a regular heater, just like the ones that you can purchase at Walmart.
Okay. And as far as well, I'll move on from that. Now, Miss Faith did tell you that as soon as the child fell, she saw that it was more serious, so she called AMS, correct?
Yes, she called 911.
Okay. So, and at this time, would it not be appropriate? It's possible that both of these burns were just accidents, correct?
I don't know if they were accidents or not.
No, I'm not asking you, Mr. Gary, if they were accidents. I'm asking you, it's possible that they were accidents because this type of heater on the floor and a young child that can trip. Would you agree with me there?
Yes.
Okay. And so, this family, specifically Jessica, she's never had any involvement with CPS, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and in your investigation, you've seen that since the child was born, she was following up with medical care, taking the child to appointments and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so wouldn't it be more appropriate if they've already taken steps to cover up that heater on the ground and now they have freestanding, I guess, space heaters? Wouldn't it could be appropriate to where the parents were just ordered to work services, the department stays in the case, and the child be returned to their home, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. That's your job and not my worker's job to make that decision.
Well, I'm just asking. I mean, if they could. Let me ask it this way, Mr. Gary: if the parents could work services and the department could keep eyes on the family for a while, wouldn't you agree with me that that could alleviate some concerns for the department?
As a worker and my investigation and me talking to, the doctor that went over all of this in our conversation that we had, I mean, I'm not for sure I could say yes or no.
Okay. All right. So now if the department's asking to be temporary managing conservator of the child, y'all are going to want the parents to work services, right?
Correct.
Okay, and if there was an order to participate in services, I don't know if you're familiar with that, the parents could work services, correct?
Correct.
And if the department was named temporary managing conservator, then they would have eyes on the family, correct?
Correct.
Now, if the judge were to order just the parents to participate in services, return the child home, the department would still have eyes on this family, correct?
Now, on that part, I would not say, but yes, that's fine.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, in part of your report, did you prepare this affidavit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in one portion of the report, you stated that there was concern about the child's weight. Do you recall including that in the report?
Yes. When I had my conversation with Dr. Hansen during our
Okay, no,
conversation.
hold up just a second. My question is, but that is in your report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you spoke with another doctor that advised you that the child was growing well and was at a healthy weight, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. What that doctor said to her was hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Nowak? I'm not seeing.
Judge, I don't see him on here. He told us when he was in his breakout room that he might lose electricity. So, and I don't know when he dropped off.
I wasn't watching either. Once I close out the breakout rooms, I just look at the screen. He's not in the waiting room. I know some people in Amarillo have lost their power.
And so I would ask that we wait
Well,
until I can try to get hold of him and then continue this.
we've got two more hearings set. Y'all obviously didn't allow enough time for this one, so I can tell you one thing. Before I make a ruling, I'm going to want to hear from Dr. Hansen. That's just the way it is. I'm going to recess this case today, whether I do it now or I do it later. So
I would just ask that you do it now, then, Your Honor, since Mr. Nowak may have problems with his electricity.
Well, yeah, we're not going to call any. We're not going to go forward on this anyway. Amy Taylor, our court reporter, she's lost power about 15 minutes ago. So
Okay.
okay, yeah, we're going to stand in recess on this. I don't know, Mr. Albee, how long you think you'll need to get with Dr. Hansen and get her subpoenaed if you need to?
Well, we were trying to get her subpoenaed. She was not available this morning.
Okay.
So with her testimony, Judge, I would anticipate about another 30 minutes on my side.
Well, I'm just trying to figure a day.
Judge, could we do April 2nd? It's a Wednesday.
Sure, that works for me if that's one of our days anyway.
It is.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, that works.
What do we have a time, or are we just going to notify everybody by email a time? We haven't set the docket yet, have we? Yeah, we'll resume it on April 2nd. Once we get that docket set, we'll know exactly what time we'll send that notice to everybody. So, Miss Taylor,
And Your Honor,
hang on.
Vince called.
Hang on, Miss Lucero, hang on. Miss Taylor, you got back, but you were missing for 15 minutes.
No, I've been on the whole time. I don't know how long it's going to hold.
Oh, okay. Well, you're already kind of breaking up, but I understood from your text to me that you'd been off for 15 minutes.
No, the power has been off for 15 minutes, but I didn't miss anything.
Okay, you're working off your laptop with a battery?
Yes.
Okay, I got you. Well, we're going to go ahead and recess.
I don't know how long the battery.
We're going to go ahead and recess it because I'm not prepared to rule until I hear from Dr. Hansen anyway, and we're already late for our next two cases. So,
Judge, just for the record, I talked to Mr. Nowak. He called me on the phone, said he did lose electricity, and he won't be available for his 11 o'clock hearing either.
Okay, all right. All right, we will stand in recess on this case. We'll come back on the 2nd of April. We'll notify all parties by email what time that hearing will take place once we get that April 2nd docket nailed down. So, all right, we'll be in recess on this case. Y'all have a good weekend.
Okay, the court hearing ended. Look, my main thought is I feel bad for that child, because personally, I used to work with kids as a former teacher, work in daycare, preschool, kindergarten, all the way up to, kids in high school. So, but these little small children, man, I feel very bad for them because they can't protect themselves. So if there is child abuse or child neglect in that home, then yes, definitely remove that child. And parents, listen, if you can't take care of a child properly, or even if you don't want the child, give the child to somebody that does, because keep that in mind that not everybody can have kids. Some folks would love to have kids, but unfortunately cannot have kids. So if you do have a child that you birthed, be very thankful and grateful. And that goes for both women and men, because there's some men that can't have kids, and there's some women that can't have kids also. So if you're a man or woman and you happen to birth a child or co-create a child, be very grateful, because a child is a blessing, and not everybody was lucky enough to be blessed and to co-create or give birth. But these are my thoughts. What's yours? As always, like the video, share the video, comment your thoughts below. Let's start a dialogue, and don't forget to subscribe. See y'all soon. Peace.